Hello, Sal.
Yes.
Hey, what's going on, dude?
How are you?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. We just got done blasting Believe in Something, and that track is fucking insane, dude. It's so good, man. Tell us
Thank you.
You're
Glad
welcome.
you like it.
Tell us what's going on in the world of a pale horse named Death.
Not a whole much. Not a whole lot. I actually just was recording a new idea, and then I had to stop because you were going to call me.
Oh
We're
shit!
we're kind of just waiting. We're waiting. We're waiting to. I think we're waiting to get out there eventually, which looks like the summer of 2022. This whole pandemic stuff and COVID stuff is kind of complicated for from band to band. But we're really stoked about the new album being out, and really stoked about the response that's been going on. As far as it always makes me very happy to know people are liking the music, what's going on, and we were stoked to release a video. And now, like, the fans are starting to get their orders and stuff that they ordered of their limited edition vinyls and all that good stuff. So I can't complain. I mean, it's a blessing every time a new record comes out, in this crazy world.
Hell yeah, man! Hell yeah! Yeah, it's this is a really good record. So you were actually just sitting there recording something new when I called you.
What it was I was killing some time. I came up to the studio because I was sitting in the living room watching TV, and so okay, let me go upstairs. I had to have some espresso because, dude, I was nodding out. I'm like an old man. So I come up here in the studio. I pick up the Les Paul, and I had thought of something when I was driving today. This musical melody and riff. And so I was trying to remember it, and then I remembered it, and then I was like, okay, I busted out the voice memo on my phone because that's what I try to do these days, is just record real quick these little snippets of ideas that come out of the blue. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was doing, and I was playing through like this little mini amp thing that I got, this little tiny setup just for quick stuff. And I was kind of singing some cool melodies, and it was just badass. And I was like, because I'm kind of like itching to write more music and record. And because what else do you do when you're not, when you're stuck or whatever, So I love creating, and I love writing music, and I happen to be fortunate enough to be never out of ideas. So that's what I was doing because I came up here like a half hour before you were calling me. So I was killing some time. And while I was killing some time, a great future seed of music came out. And then I put it down 5 minutes before, and then I was on Facebook, and then you texted me, and yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, it's not that it's not that glamorous. It's not that glamorous, but there's always seeds being planted. So anytime I can pick up the guitar real quick and start whipping away some ideas, because that's how it all happens. That's how the last record happened as well. Just sketches and stuff like that.
Hell yeah, man. Well, you've definitely got a lot of ideas. I mean, with all these different things that you've been a part of, which I'll get into that in a little bit later. But I want to talk about this new record. Sure. Can you tell us about the recording process for this? Like, what was it different because of the pandemic, or?
No, it didn't. I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I record pretty much on every record. I record everything, just about.
So it's all
with the
you,
exception of guitar solos. It's always been like that since the beginning. See, this band originally started out as a studio. It wasn't a band. It was a studio project, and one thing led to another. It was originally just I had all this music on the first record, and my buddy Matt Brown, who was back then my production partner, he became, when he heard the stuff, he's like, dude, you got to record this stuff. We got to do something with it. All right. So here I am playing everything. I had some guest appearances by other musicians like Bobby Hamble doing guitar solos, and Matt did solos. And that's how it's always been. I kind of like make it, it's always been a little bit of an illusion. But that's because I'm a control freak, and I wanted to, being that I was in other bands in the past, and I watched some very awful situations of like collaborative efforts, people being in a room together and trying to write a song, and it just doesn't work that way. And you end up butting heads and wasting a whole day trying to come up with a shitty song, basically, at the end of the day. And this music that I do now is a culmination of like 30 years of experience of watching the do's and do nots. And basically, like the pandemic, this new record, I started recording ideas in January of 2020, right when we started hearing about this bullshit on TV with a Chinese virus. And I had a bunch of sketches, and then we got shut down here. And I'm in New York. I don't know where you are, but I'm
Tennessee.
In New York, and so New York got shut down March 18th. Where are you? Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee.
Is that? Oh, cool. I love Tennessee. It's beautiful. Nashville, all that stuff. Good barbecue. Oh, yeah. So, before you guys even got hit with anything, New York, being the state that we are, they're like, oh, we got shut down to flatten the curve for 2 weeks, blah, 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 blah. So, all of a sudden, everybody got locked down. My kids were stuck home. Everybody was stuck home. I was just the only one going out getting some stuff, and continued sketching. I was like, well, here we go. And then I just had a bunch of ideas, half the record, like sketches. Then I walked away from it for like 4 months because I'm into muscle cars, and I had picked up a 70 Challenger in July of 2020.
Nice.
So I spent the whole summer working on that. And now that car is actually, I sent it away to do full body restoration. And so I got back to the record when, like, it's weird for me because summertime is a weird time of year for me where I don't feel inspired, because how can you write about doom and gloom when everybody's having a barbecue and wanting to go in a kiddie pool or whatever? It's kind of hard to like get in that mode. So when the fall came, like this time of year, which is perfect, and the winter, which is where I thrive working in the studio, I said, okay, time to open up everything again. And this was before I even spoke to the label or mentioned to them. They had no idea what I was up to. And I started going through everything. I was like, okay, this is great. This is good. This can definitely be something. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the record came out between October and November, which was like Shards of Glass, Reflections of the Dead, Devil's Deed, all the soundscapes, all the vocals. I got into doing vocals starting over the Christmas holiday time. I was done with vocals by the end of January or towards the end of January, and I started mixing in February. And by that point, I had already mentioned, like around the holidays, I said to the label, hey, I'm working on a record. When do you think is a good idea to put it out, and when would you want the delivery? And they were like, it'd be really great if we could put it out in September, around the end of summer 2021. We'd need it by April. And I was like, yeah, okay, great. Well, here I am. I talked to my mastering engineer, Maor Applebaum, who was one of the only key people on this record, aside from Joe Taylor and Eddie Heedles, who do the guitar solos. That's the one thing I don't do, is the awesome guitar solos you hear. I don't get involved in that. I let them write it. I pick a bunch. I pick what's best, and I may give an opinion, but that's what I don't do is guitar solos. I do guitar melody work, rhythm guitars, bass, drums, all that other crap, piano. And we delivered ahead of schedule. The label was like, wow, great work as usual. And I don't know, you never know how people are going to receive stuff. I did dabble into a lot of new things, but still retained the sound. And I kind of just took this approach with a little bit of spontaneity as well with the writing, where I would just pick up the guitar and then boom, what would fall out and feel right was what would become the song, and the lyrics and the melodies and the working titles and all that stuff would follow suit. And I like working like that because again, from experience, and if I was ever to produce a band or work with other musicians, I would tell them the same advice. It's like, you can't beat yourself up in a studio trying to walk in and say, well, today we're going to write a song and it's going to be great and we're all going to collaborate and be friends and blah, blah 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 blah. It doesn't work like that. You know, a song comes out from mood, emotion. It
Right.
comes out from an experience. It comes out from something like a hammer hitting you in the head, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. You can't choreograph exactly when that moment's always going to happen. You just got to kind of go with the flow, and that's why I learned. And I learned that actually, honestly, I learned that from Peter. Peter wrote like that. Peter wrote on it by himself. He'd walk, then show up at the studio and be like, "Guys, I got another song here. It goes like this: boom, 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 boom. I want to do this here. I want to do this here." And I was actually fortunate enough to be able to write my own drums in that band because, again, not everybody knows every instrument, and as multi-talented as Peter was, drums wasn't his thing. So I was lucky in that band to be able to still do my own drums with a little bit of tug of war sometimes with him. But again, he was the kind of songwriter that would, the melody, the lyrics, and the music and the arrangement would be done already in his head, you know? Now, then I've been in other bands where it's like, you know, you got 4 people in a room looking at each other all day in the studio and trying to do, well, what about this part? Can this part go with that part? So you learn. It's all about being seasoned and experienced as a musician. And I think the older you get and the more you're surrounded by people, you learn from other people as well. It's a seasoning type of thing. And you take all that experience. And I'm at a point in my life now where it's like, you know, sometimes bands or people would be afraid to go into the studio. Oh my God, we got to do a record. It better be great. At this point in my life, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's like let's do it. You know, like I'm ready to go into other ideas and uncharted territory. Like, you know, with this record, I brought in even more piano. I brought in some orchestral other instrumentation into this record, and there's a lot of little things going on. It sounds simple, but there's so much devil in the details, and I love doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And now I'm rambling now, so just feel free to stop me because you know it's past 10. I had a couple of cups of espresso. I'm jacked. So
that's all right, Sal. Yeah, man. I was gonna ask you about the solos because I mean that solo that's playing towards the end of "Believe in Something" is fucking. That's insane, man. Who did that?
Eddie Heedles. Eddie Heedles. He's like the fastest guitarist I know. He's great for that type of stuff.
Yeah, he's going nuts.
And again, you know, you can hear Eddie doing solos as far back as the second album, the third album. You know, so he's it did make it a little tough again with COVID. It would have been great if like they would have been able to like come, you know, us spend time together and stuff like that. That was the only downside with the COVID was, you know, having the guitar solos done in front of me, you know, so I can say, okay, you know, let's try this or let's try that, or just have that kind of camaraderie with that type of stuff. But they did a fantastic job, and when this thank God we have the technology, because if this would have been 30 years ago, it would have been extremely difficult to be flying solos from, you know, New Jersey to upstate New York, you know. So it's the wonderful world of FTP, Dropbox, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
You can send a very large file, and so that's how we did it, and that's how Joe Taylor did it as well. I mean, Joe Taylor did the bulk of the solos on this record. He's a completely different kind of guitarist, but they complement each other so much, and having that diversity, I think, is really cool. Joe's more bluesy, old school, Sabbathy, kind of feely kind of solos. Like you'll hear him do stuff and like the other songs, and they're you know, I consider them very, very important in this little trilogy that we have going on.
Now, the production of this record is really good too, man. Like, I got to tell you, I was listening to it in my truck, and I got a pretty good system in my truck, man. So I was cranking it up loud, and
Nice.
It really, really sounds good when you crank it up loud like that, and you got the bass and everything. It's just, I don't know, man. But can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, because, I mean,
Yeah, I'll tell you a lot about it. It was my bucket list. This is the first record that I entirely recorded, engineered, mixed, and produced myself, and then I had Maor Applebaum in LA master it. So this was again, this was done, you know, in my studio here in my house, and I wanted to for a long time get to this point because I've always, I've trained my ears for so many years to hear what I want to hear, and I can pick out the littlest things. But sometimes when you're working with a partner, and the stuff is like in a different studio, and you're going back and forth, and they're sending you files, and they're mixing or something, things get lost, and maybe ideas or the heat of the moment gets lost. So I was, to be honest with you, dissatisfied with the production of the third record, and I even had some fans tell me they were unhappy with the production, and I was like, yeah, I know, we kind of rushed it, and it was out of my hands, and I had something else going on in my life, whatever. But I really wanted to, I knew I needed to redeem all of that. And I also, one of the things I always wanted to do was before I kicked the bucket on the bucket list, I was like, I got to do the whole record my way. I know if I do it my way, it's gonna, if I'm right and my gut instincts is right, then it's gonna really come out really good. And that's what I did. And I took a chance. I took a leap of faith. But Maor also gelled with it, and he heard what I was going for as well. So when I sent him, we did 2 mixes, and when I sent them, we ended up sticking with the second mix, and he heard the whole retro vibe that I was going for, because I'm big on the fuzzy guitars, like old school fuzzy, and I didn't even use a lot of stuff, I use orange amps, tube amps, stuff like that, all old school shit. And he heard that, and he ran the mastering through all this analog vacuum tube equipment, right? So it's all glass tube, vacuum, analog outboard gear that he ran it through to get that all that warmth, like as if the record came out in the early 80s or even the late 70s. We didn't want to go for this slick. I'm not into the super slick production work. Like I don't want to make a record sound so good that it sounds fake. That's why you have, like, I intentionally did, every time a song would start, you would hear the pedal kick on for a split second, that feedback, or you hear some grittiness with, like, the handling of the guitar, or just these little sounds that would happen if you were in the room with the person actually recording, and none of it got cleaned up. I wanted the listener to feel like they're there, and it's an organic experience, as if they were in the room and the band was playing that song in front of them, and you hear that split second. I mean, you just played "Believe in Something." It happens right at the opening drum riff right there. You'll hear that feedback for a split second underneath when the stomp box is turned on, and it's something that I really always loved that, and I actually picked that up and took that from the second Carnivore record, which was something Peter did on the second Carnivore record a lot. He would hit his Boss distortion pedal a split second early to start the song on time, but what it created was this cool split second feedback that would happen right before the song kicked in, and it just gave it that real cool, organic, aggressive, gritty vibe. And I said, you know what, no one's done that since. Like, I hear a lot of, like, I'm not really big on the new metal that's going on, but anytime I hear something somewhere, like if I'm on whatever it is, a radio or gimme metal, or I hear it in the car, something, everything sounds polished and perfect, super clean, entrances, super silent between the songs. I like, look, I'm old, I want my records to sound old, so that's so the production was an attitude of spontaneity, clarity, with the gritty, old school sounding kind of drums, bass, guitars, a little bit of looseness with the distortion and fuzzy boxes that, just makes it feel like you're in the room. And that was the attitude of the record. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I will change any of that in the future. I'm totally in love with that vibe.
That's awesome, man. Speaking of that, that makes me think about something I was going to ask you about. As far as like the first three Type O Negative albums that you played on, I noticed that there's a distinct difference, because I remember whenever October Rust came out, it was a lot more polished than those first three records, and I still liked it. I liked everything they did, but those first three, man, there was something different about them, man. It was, I think it was like what you're saying, like it was just
they were done more organically. They were done more organically. I mean, going back to the first album, Slow, Deep, and Hard, that record originally was the Repulsion demo. So then it was just basically, when the label wanted to put it out, I think they did a little bit of a remix, a little bit of a master thing, and that record also had so much, like for example, the first record was a transition type of record, because a lot of the material, like the riffs or songs, would have been, had Carnivore not broken up, it would have been the third Carnivore record.
Yeah.
That's why you've got some real aggressive stuff going on there. There's some aggressive double bass, there's some aggressive so that was a transitional record. And yet he wrote some songs specifically also after that fact, like Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity was something that happened during he caught his ex-girlfriend cheating on him, and that was in that transitionary period when he wasn't in Carnivore and we were creating this new band, and that was a song he wrote. Yes, same thing with the song Pain, Prelude to Agony. But then there was songs like Der Untermensch, Waste of Life. That was an actual Carnivore song originally. Some of the riffs in like Gravitational Constant was parts, I believe, or maybe entirely was a Carnivore song. So that's why I remember when we got together and we formed and we did the first rehearsals, Peter already had like 4 or 5 songs to like start playing. He already had stuff in the bag ready to go. So because this was stuff he was already had, that would have been the third Carnivore record, which probably, had they done a third record, it probably would have been phenomenal. And who knows? That band was in my book underrated. It was so cutting edge at the time with the combination of thrashcore that they were doing. So then we moved on to the whole let's do a fake live record thing, Origin of Feces, and then basically Origin of Feces was like a lot of the material of from the first record, Acting Like We're Playing Live. There was, I think, a new song, We Hate Everyone, was written for that record, I think. And we were out there, making believe it was a live record, and that was like the biggest joke that we were having a laugh about because of our experience of being banned in Europe by extremist left-wing organizations, claiming that we were Nazis when we were in Europe. So, see, what we're going through today was it wasn't going on. What we got going on today in politics was going on also back then in Europe. You know what I mean? So it's like these extreme organizations, claiming people are this and that. So then after that, Peter, we started going out to the city, and like we started leaving Brooklyn and going to the city, and we started finding ourselves in these unique bars and goth clubs, goth bars, and he started getting really enamored when he'd see like these chicks in Alphabet City on Avenue A walking around with long black Morticia-like dresses and the black hair and blah blah blah. So he almost literally like started catering to that. Hence the song Black Number One, which was also, I think, affiliated with someone he might have been with that had that hair dye as well. But it was like a whole big spiel. We used to go to a club called Limelight on Sunday nights. It was like the metal night, goth night was Sunday nights actually. And a lot of times we'd find ourselves on a Friday night in Alphabet City in like bars that were like Alcatraz and the Pyramid Lounge and all these places that don't exist anymore. I mean, that's when it was great to be in Manhattan back then in the 89, 1990, around that time, 91. That was a great time. And great bars and stuff. And there was a lot of inspiration that Peter took from going out to these places. And he, same thing, like we were going to this bar called the Scrap Bar, located on McDougal Street. It was like a basement type of underground bar, but it was completely fabricated by junk welded together. The thing was it was like these massive gears were like tables, and it was like a lot of machinery stuff welded together hanging on the walls, and that inspired Peter to, I think that had something to do with Peter coming up with the Hammer Gear logo, and stuff like that, because we were sitting there hanging out, getting drunk and wasted in these places, and he was just absorbing it all, because he kind of was, it was like a new era for the band. And that's how I think this whole vibe that started coming through on Bloody Kisses.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian Woman and Black Number One, this whole thing. But again, the record was also recorded organically. Mind you, after Bloody Kisses, all the way up until Dead Again, they programmed drums. So that's probably where you're getting that synthetic polished feel. And also Josh wanted to probably get even more slicker and more pristine sounding, and that was the progression of the band's sound, which sounded good. I think October Rust sounded very good, but again, it was becoming maybe a little bit more mechanical and digital sounding. And Bloody Kisses was recorded live in the room. It was recorded live scratch tracks, live drums, and then it was like after that they would redo the guitars, and the bass was done with the drums pretty much, live. So that was the vibe back then, and I was super. I was young. I was 23. That was the year I did Bloody Kisses, and then got hired to do River Runs Red, and I was 23, and I was like a sponge. I was an asshole, but I was a sponge, and I was learning by just hanging out with Josh. I lived with Josh actually for a long time in his house, and I just was always back and forth with him in his studio. And those guys were a little bit older than me, and I was just taking it all in. And that also paid off later on in my life as well. And I'm glad Peter was the reason why I started playing guitar back then, because I started playing guitar, like I bought a shit bass, shit guitar, like in 1991 or something. I was like, I want to just, for myself, it was for my, just like I was in the closet about it, just fun at home and learning how. I said, I want to learn how to, play, and one thing led to another.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I remember when Bloody Kisses came out. I was in high school, and they played Black Number One on the radio, and I was like, what the fuck is this, man? Never heard anything like it. And a friend of mine got the cassette tape and come over, and we played it, and we listened to it, and it was so fucking awesome. And I was like, man, I got to get this. So I went to the record store the next week, and they didn't have that particular album, but they had Slow, Deep, and Hard and Origin of Feces. But I didn't know anything about those records at all. So I was looking at them, and I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to grab Slow, Deep, and Hard just to see what it's like. And I took it home and listened to it, and it's so different from Bloody Kisses when you listen to it in that way, going backwards. But at the same time, I could totally, you can see where the, and especially with Origin, you can see where the transition happens. But,
yes.
The sound on those records, especially with the drums, man. I remember sitting in the back of this dude's van, and he had these huge speakers in the back, and he was cranking it up. We were smoking weed. We were just sitting back listening to it. And the drums, dude, like those fucking the kick drum and the floor tom is so fucking loud on that shit, especially when you got it cranked like that, man. I just remember sitting there thinking, fuck, this is insane, man. It's so fucking heavy. I love it, dude.
We worked for days. Josh was, like I said, I was living with Josh, so we would talk all night, smoking weed, just like you. Smoking weed, talking about what we were going to do the next day in the studio on the drums. And I also was using very big toms on those records. So I was using big toms,
they sound massive,
big snare drum. and that was, little did I know that I was like just, I was making my own thing. And I had no idea if somebody would, I didn't know, like back then we were so frustrated. We were kids. We were just playing shows like locally. And I had no idea. I didn't know that Bloody Kisses was going to eventually become such an iconic album that is now like embedded in history as like an influential, record for so many young bands. Because it almost makes me feel like, well, that's how I looked at Black Sabbath. Like Black Sabbath was like this huge influence on me, and so now you got kids, young bands that it's like a household name for some of these kids, Type O Negative, and they refer to Type O Negative like as the there's so many bands that try to sound like that now, and they're trying to emulate it, which is cool. I think it's a great compliment, and I would have never thought that I would, if you would have asked me when I was 23 like that, I'd be talking to someone when I was way in like 2021 about the record. I would have been like, I don't even know if I'll be alive, but yeah, right, okay. Right, we'll see about that. Who the fuck knew? And unfortunately, Peter's passing probably made it even more. The fact that the band was like there would be no more records once he was gone, probably made it even more legendary. Just like when Hendrix passed away, or any great artist passes away, they suddenly become even more elusive and valuable and legendary. Like famous artists. They don't become famous till they die. Painters, stuff like that. Their artwork doesn't go up in value until they die. They don't even get to see it, go up in value. It's kind of like that. So I think after he passed, and now that we're into like 11 years now that he's been gone, it's quite a while. So I think the young generation kind of look back, just like they would with Kurt Cobain, and Lane Staley. It's inaccessible. It'll never come back, so it makes it even more. They want it even more.
Yeah, definitely.
They seek it out, all the history.
Definitely one of those one of a kind people, man, for sure.
Exactly. God just happens to have whether it's the universe or God or the devil, whatever you believe in, has a knack at picking these unique people because they may have weaknesses in other ways, and okay, I'm gonna put you in my band, and they pick them out. So it's crazy. I would have never thought, that Bloody Kisses would have been as successful as it is. It's the only record that went platinum for Type O Negative. So it's a huge accomplishment for a bunch of dirtbags from Brooklyn.
All right. Speaking of Brooklyn, man, I got some questions from listeners. One of them, Thunderous. She's in New York. She wants to know, what is your favorite pizza place?
Well, I don't live in New York City anymore. So I would say when I was in Brooklyn, the place that we always went to coming home from the city was called Lenny and John's on Flatbush Avenue. That was definitely one of our favorite places to go to. It was like the local thing for us bands, because that's where Biohazard, actually Evan Seinfeld was a delivery boy, pizza guy for that place too, and we'd always run into other musicians at that place, and it was also down the avenue from a rehearsal studio. that we also would go to once in a while in our younger years. And so I'd say, if you ever happen to go into Brooklyn, go to Flatbush Avenue, look up Lenny and John's Pizzeria. They're still there. They're still there. I haven't been to, Brooklyn. As far as I'm concerned, Brooklyn and New York City has changed a lot, and obviously New York City has changed for the worse. I don't recommend anybody going there if you're not from New York City, because now it's okay for people to be bludgeoned in broad daylight and nobody gets arrested. So I live, though, here in upstate New York, so I have my favorite pizza places over here in Orange County. If you happen to be in this neck of the woods, there's a place called Reina's, there's Fratello's, stuff like that. But Brooklyn, Lenny and John's, definitely.
Nice. Next question. Marietta wants to know, what is your funniest Peter Steele story?
Ooh, man, like I said, we smoked a lot of weed back then, so it's always a bitch for me to remember everything. Famous, funniest Peter Steele story. I just, funniest story. Well, I can say a story about what happened to the band, where we were performing in a club called Die Roar in Stuttgart, Germany, and as soon as we hit the first note of the first song, all these police and dogs came into the venue because there was a bomb threat made, that there was a bomb in the venue, and we all had to evacuate and wait about 2 hours while they searched the place. And of course, Peter was getting very frustrated and was like, I should have stayed home. He always had that attitude, like, I should have stayed home, I should have never toured. And that leads me to the American tour. When we were in the van, he used to get really mad at me because, again, I was so prolific at making up jingles on the spot, and I would tease him. Like, I regret doing that now, but I used to tease him pretty bad in the van, and that he wanted to go home, back to his house in Brooklyn because he could handle the rigors of the road. He was pretty. I'll tell you, another story is we would go out every weekend, like I said, to the city, and I don't know how we lived because he would do the driving, and we would get so inebriated and drunk, and I don't know. I guess it maybe was because it was a different decade, but we would always almost get into a brawl at a bar because for some reason people felt like they wanted to try start something with the biggest guy in the band, which was Peter. And then we'd all stand up and be like, well, what, motherfucker? Because we'd be stupid drunk. And then we drive home, which I don't advise to do. We drive home on the BQE, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, in his ratty Grand Prix that he turned into a tank. I don't know if you ever saw pictures of that car, but he oversized tires. That's a funny story. He took a 1985 blue Grand Prix. He cut out the wheel wells. He put Cadillac control arms in it and put 35-inch tires on that thing. That thing looked like a monstrosity. It was falling apart. Looked cool, but it was falling apart. And I was always shitting my pants because I'd sit in the back seat with Kenny Hickey. And I'm like, are you okay to drive home? Are you okay? Yeah, I got it. I drive all day. I drive a truck for the Parks Department all day. This is when he was working. And I'm fine. And, I just don't know how we ever made it home. I would literally black out. And when I would get into Josh's house and I'd wake up and be like, how did we even get home? So those are some random stories, real specific stories. Again, I was in the band right up until like the cusp of 1994, and then after that I know there's a lot of funny stories about him with the guys after my time, but I'm a little weird about getting too personal about him. Again, it's like talking about the dead.
Yeah.
It's weird for me.
Hell yeah, man. You mentioned the bomb threats, and that reminds me because he kind of mentioned
happened everywhere.
He says that during the Origin of Feces thing.
That record happened after that whole experience.
So that's where he got the idea.
After all that experience. Yes, sir. Because that record was inspired from that European tour that we did. Oh, well, here's a funny story. We were on tour with a band called Pungent Stench, and we shared a bus with them. They were from Austria, and true to the name, they lived by that. They never showered. They wore leather pants all day long with no underwear, and would go to bed in leather pants. With they just would sweat on stage. They would stay on. They would get drunk, and so then here we are. We're a party of two bands and a tour manager and a manager, and we took a ferry. We had to get to Oslo, Norway. We're on the ferry. Now, when you get off, when you approach your destination and you're there, you have to get online because you have to go through a customs procedure, just like if you got off a plane. All of a sudden, they singled us out. They singled all of us out, put us in a room. Turns out, it was customs. They were going to search us. Little did we know, this band, these guys, we were all in one room, like a holding cell. And this band happened to have like an aluminum foil with like an 8-ball of cocaine in it. And I mean, I wasn't much into that kind of stuff. I was always a smoker. But these guys shit their pants so bad because we were, they were taking us individually into another room with an agent, and they were strip searching us. So they were strip searching us because they suspected correctly that there would be drugs. So they started with Type O first. So this band Pungent Stench is in the room shitting their pants. So they took each member like one by one. I remember my experience was, they went through all my shit. They poured my shampoo, conditioner. They said, spread your cheeks. They didn't stick a finger in my ass, but they looked. And they did that to everybody. Now, this band, Pungent Stench, had fucking cocaine with them in the room. It was like a scene out of Cheech and Chong. They were fucking eating the coke out of this thing, the aluminum foil, fucking all over the fucking place, fucking cocaine. They're fucking eating it, freaking out. And they got rid of it. They ate, these fucking sick fucks ate it all. And how they did not get busted for it was incredible. Now, I did have a bowl of hash, and I actually just swallowed it like a pill, and that's how I avoided getting in trouble. But that is an insane story, and it really happened, and it was before the European Union. It was before the things getting a little bit relaxed. This was in 1991 when things were still pretty strict, where they would throw you somewhere and throw away the key and nobody would hear from you for a while. These guys, and I was freaking out because I was like, Josh, they're fucking eating cocaine. We're dead. We're going to get in fucking trouble because of these guys. And that was an insane moment. That tour was insane, actually. It was. Because we had half the tour canceled because of bomb threats and left-wing propaganda. They were threatening promoters and venues that they were going to burn them down if they let us play. So we literally sat in a bus hanging out. I remember we spent like four days in Amsterdam, parked in Central Station, like just hanging out in the coffee shops, which was a big deal in 1991 because that was way before anything was legal here. So there's an insane story that was of a collective of all of us going through a situation. That tour was insane, and it inspired Peter. It inspired that live record, Origin of Feces. Like all the stuff we did, that whole scene about the bomb threats and the dog, that really happened. That really happened. We had bomb dogs and police, and we're like, what the fuck, man? We're like, and it was for me and for Peter, actually for all four of us, it was our first time in Europe, period, like as a band, as musicians. And so we were just like, the fuck is going on? So there was this constant, there was brawls, there was a lot of fights, because you'd have like two different like radical extremist groups butting heads in the parking lots. It was really scary at moments. And one night in Dusseldorf, they broke the windows on our tour bus while we were inside trapped because
Jesus.
these left-wing groups showed up to the show, waited outside to beat up all the fans that came inside to watch us play because they were considered Nazis. And in the meantime, they threw bricks at the front windshield of the Van Hool tour bus, which was tremendous windshield, on these European buses, and it was horrible. They broke the windows. So it's all starting to come back as I'm talking. Some crazy stuff, and that influenced Origin of Feces. That's why it was such a spoof record. It was like a fuck you to all those people. It was like, what a joke. We were just four guys from Brooklyn. Yes, Peter thrived on shock and awe. He loved pushing the envelope, and he was brilliant at it. And I get it. And that's what many artists do that. They make the people gasp and go, oh my God, how can he sing about that or say that? And this was all created from the second Carnivore record because of a couple of songs. And so then with the Slow, Deep and Hard as well, because we had a song called Der Untermensch, which was a Carnivore song as well. Waste of Life, that one. There was such hype, such bullshit, such propaganda. No different. It was the same exact tactic that's going on right now in America. Same shit.
Man, that is some funny shit about Pungent Stench, dude. Like,
yeah, I think they still exist too. I think you can look at them. They play some festivals in Europe. Yeah. They were literally living up to the freaking name, dude. They stunk to high heaven of BO, body odor, ass. They were
They've got a song, I think, called Tony, where they actually recite some of the words from the movie Scarface. So now that you're telling me all this, it makes sense, man. It all makes sense now.
There you go. Nice guys. Had a lot of laughs with them.
Man, how did you guys?
Very, very unique for us Americans.
How did you guys make it through Origin of Feces without fucking laughing yourselves to death, man? Like, listen, when I listen, when I listen to it, man, it cracks me up every time, dude.
Especially me and Josh.
I love it, man.
No, we were laughing. Origin of Feces was an interesting album. The label was kind of like, what the hell? And of course, the original album cover was Peter's anus. And the inside, the pictures on the inside of the record was like with turds on our faces on on our press photos. I mean, that was just sheer. Again, at that moment, the band didn't think it was gonna be anything like, we didn't know where the band was going. We were just living for the moment. And that's probably what it was. That's what did it. That's what made the band so different and unique. And people were just like, what the fuck? And then, they hear about this band, and then here we are, and we show up, and there's this dude that's like 6'5", 6'6". It just was, we were all characters, and we were all wise asses, because, we were from the heart of it, and in New York, and we were very New York, very Brooklyn, and so we just said what we were feeling right at that moment without any kind of filter whatsoever.
Oh yeah, man.
It was good times.
That video for Black Number One, when Peter's standing there holding a fucking stand-up bass like a guitar and just jamming on it like it's nothing. Like, what the fuck,
dude?
Man?
His arms were long enough. His arms were long enough to do it. His arms were long enough to play it. He thought it was a cool idea, and
that was awesome.
That was a crazy video shoot. I remember being up till the sunrise, and we did it in Central Park, and it was definitely a cool experience. Again, had no idea the video was going to be so become iconic and be on Beavis and Butthead and all that stuff back in the day, MTV, and who knew? Who knew? And then I was like, well, it's cool. I it was a crazy roller coaster ride, and I don't think I would change it in any way, because it just it's just a lot of memories and a lot of good stories and a lot of good experiences that make us the people we are today.
All right. Well, going back to A Pale Horse Named Death, man, what can fans expect coming up next from you guys?
Well, we're talking. I think we may be gearing up to do stuff in the summer of 2022, and do some festivals hopefully in Europe, and hopefully do some stuff here in America. It's kind of, honestly, it's even out of my hands, because they're talking about already crushing Christmas. The ongoing situation in this country and with this virus, I don't know what to tell you. And I've been saying the same thing in every interview. It has crushed so many bands and artists and the industry. And I see some bands out there trying to make something happen, but then you hear about bands canceling and who's getting sick, and even like, Corey Taylor, he was vaccinated, but he got sick. You got Kiss vaccinated, they got sick. You got not that Limp Bizkit is anything special, but they canceled their tour. Wednesday 13 canceled their tour. Like you get, it's just, it is an uncertain time. And what happens is, to put a tour together, there's a lot of money. There's money that has to be fronted. I think a lot of people are getting afraid of losing money. Promoters are afraid. Everything's exhausted. So it's hard to give an honest answer. The best thing I could say is that we're hoping that we can do stuff in the summer, because I also have guys in the band that are concerned also. It's not just me. I'm concerned as well, but I have guys in the band that, some are more concerned than others about getting out there, and they want to wait. So we have to respect everybody's feelings too. And also, there's people that work because we've had no choice during this pandemic, but when you have, the regular things in life, things have to keep rolling. So I'm hoping to maybe, spring, summer, get our feet wet. At the same time, I'm also thinking about starting to track some ideas, because I'm so inspired by this album on how it came out and the reception it's gotten, that I'm already excited to want to work on some new stuff and start sketching and start planning some ideas. Because if bands can't really play, look at Cannibal Corpse. They said it themselves. They said it's the first time in 30 years they didn't go out and support their new record, so now they're recording another record, because it's the safe thing to do right now, is to just make another record and give fans more music. It's so, nothing is normal about what's going on in our country and world right now.
Right.
But if the bands can hang in there and keep making music, so that's the plan. Keep trucking. Most importantly, I think everyone. You're in Tennessee, so the fans are. I'm talking to people that are in America, and I think the most important thing right now is, America needs to come together and say, enough with this fucking bullshit, enough with this new wave of shit that's going on, and all these crazy ideas, and let's get back to what it used to be like, and we need to demand that. And too many people are complacent in allowing things happening the way they are. So and then I think everything else will follow suit. But we're going to keep on hearing you see it on TV, more restrictions. Now it's like, now these mandates are making people, now there's shortages, there's all kinds of problems going on in this country. It's insane. So it's hard to get a gander on shows. I hope to play in the summer. I really miss everybody, and I like talking to the fans. I like shooting shit. I'm always the one that likes to hang out at the merch booth and say hello. And I'm usually the last one to leave, so that's the plan right now. The record just came out, so I want everyone to get it and enjoy it, and definitely come to our social media sites and tell me what you think, because I'm the one that's pretty much hands-on. So I'm responding to fans all the time, and if anyone has any questions, they can reach me there.
Nice.
And ask me questions. So yeah. There's no illusion. This isn't no Wizard of Oz shit. This It's me. It's like when they go to Facebook, if they ask a question on the band's page, it's either gonna, unless it's sometimes the label answers, but it's 9 out of 10 times it's me. There's nobody else. You know, actually I run it. I own it. So same thing with the website and the Instagram too. It's me checking every day, and you know. So when fans write stuff, I enjoy it because it means a lot to me when they say, I really like your new record, I like this, I like that, or you know, that really is that's my payoff, because this is really a labor of love. You know, no one's getting rich off this industry these days. So me pushing ahead is because the fans are like, you know, what you do for me or what your music has done for me, whether it was Typo or it's this or it's the song Die Alone off the first record, or it's Slave to the Master off of this record. That's my payoff. That's what really makes me smile and feel good, because I feel like I've done something good for someone that maybe gets them out of a certain rut in their mind, and you know, almost like therapeutic in a way. So that's my payoff. So I really enjoy when the fans contact us and write and talk to us on social media.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Well, Sal, I'm about out of questions for you. Is there anything else you want to let the people know?
Thank you so much. You know, thank you so much for the undying love. I mean, honestly, for like when I think beyond the 11 years, 10 years of Pale Horse, but you know, all the years through all the bands, you know, with as far back as Typo Negative, I really appreciate. Like I said, if you would have asked me back then, you know, I would have never believed it, that I'd be talking, you know, even on to you right now about this stuff at 51. I would have never believed it. But I want to say thank you very much to the fans, because honestly, the one thing that nobody can forget is without the undying love of the fans, there would be no bands, there'd be no industry, there'd be no radio show. So we owe it all to the fans, and that you are the lifeblood of music, and music is your lifeblood. So it's a reciprocating relationship. So thank you so much, and most importantly, stick to what you believe in. Stay safe, and thank you, Zach, for having me on this evening. I appreciate it. I was, anytime. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Hey, man.
And you as well. Be safe.
We thank you for taking the time to talk to us, dude. Anytime, man. Anytime. Before I let you go, can I get you to make us a station tag?
Yes. Tell me how you'd like me to say it.
All right. Whenever you're ready, say something like, "This is Sal from Typo Negative, Life of Agony, and a Pale Horse Named Death, and you're listening to Metal Devastation Radio."
Metal Devastation. That's the part I really needed. Metal Devastation Radio. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. This is Sal Abrascato from Typo Negative, Life of Agony, and currently a Pale Horse Named Death. And you're listening to Metal Devastation Radio. Be sure to crank it up and bang your heads.
Fuck yeah. That's what I'm talking about, man. All right. Sal.
Hey, dude, send me the link. Send me the social media links and stuff, and we'll share.
I will, dude.
Stuff. If it re-airs or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I shared last night what you sent me, the ad mat. So if there's a link to listen to the interview for the fans that are around the world, definitely shoot it over my way, and then I'll share it on the band's page.
I'll send you everything tomorrow, brother.
Thank you.
All right,
awesome.
Man.
Well, you have a great evening, Zach, and thanks again for the opportunity. I enjoyed the interview. Anytime.
Hey, you too, Sal. We'll talk to you later, man. Cheers.
All right. Good night, brother. Bye-bye.
There you have it, folks. Sal from a Pale Horse Named Death, Typo Negative, and Life of Agony on the Zach Moonshine Show. Like I said earlier, put your speakers in your fucking windows. Put them in your front lawns. Put them in your neighbor's driveway. If you're living in the basement, tape your fucking speakers to the ceiling. Make motherfuckers fucking scared. If you don't see U-Haul trucks everywhere tomorrow, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you ain't fucking cranking it up loud enough like we are, man. This is a pale horse named Death. Shards of glass.